The Arizona legislature enters the home stretch.
This, of all times, is a time when the parties really need to sit down together.
Challenges with passing a budget.
They have too much money.
Plus, understanding Kratom, touted as a natural alternative to opioids.
I've become an advocate for Kratom and for the people that buy it.
The DEA has taken a position that is a drug of concern.
Hello and welcome to Arizona 360. I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thank you for joining us. This week, Arizona lawmakers began debate on a budget totaling more than $11 billion. On a day when negotiations were front and center, we traveled to the Capitol to hear from lawmakers on both sides about whether their priorities advanced or fell by the wayside. We begin with Republican Senator Paul Boyer, whose support for the budget hinged on the fate of his bill geared toward helping victims of childhood sex abuse. Tell me why you are so committed to a certain piece that you would like to see at least discussed, if not necessarily voted on, before you agree to a budget.
Yeah, so we have in the state of Arizona the worst statute of limitations for victims of child sexual assault. And I found out about that last year during the Larry Nassar trial. And I just did some research to see, well, where is Arizona? Turns out we're dead last. Other states have since that passed their statute of limitations reform. Michigan, New York earlier this year, Montana last week, New Jersey this week. Arizona is still an outlier as far as the time that we give for children who have been sexually assaulted to deal with the emotional, the psychological trauma on what has been done to them, to even come forward and have the courage to confront their abuser.
You've also had some opposition from within the party.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to?
Well, the insurance industry is very powerful around here, and they've been, since day one, they've been opposed, and I've tried to work with them, and they told me that anything that deals with a look-back period, they're going to oppose. I tried to give them several different proposals, and they've turned down every single one.
How would you describe the climate in this current session? Because you've been at this for a while. For you to say, hey, I've normally tried to be pretty moderate when it comes to what I want heard before being voted on, but now I might hold it hostage, some would say, before I agree to a budget.
Yeah, again, I just think that there are some issues that transcend budget and children who have been sexually assaulted. And we have a very precise definition of a sexual assault in Arizona. I'm not going to give it to you because it's that heinous. But children shouldn't have to deal with that. And the effect of rape doesn't go away after decades. And these kids are now adults are still dealing with it. And I want to expose current predators. It takes an adult who has been sexually assaulted to come forward, who's processed. Just like that ran in the paper today, Greg Kelly, he's a survivor, and he talked about his story and how because Delaware opened up their 2-year window, he was able to expose a sitting judge who had sexually assaulted hundreds of boys, now grown men.
Is this somehow splitting the party? I mean, behind closed doors, the public won't be able to see these budget negotiations and discussions, knowing this is one piece of material you would like to see given attention to.
Yeah, I don't know if it's split the party. It certainly has split leadership. I mean, I believe that if I get a bill on the board just for an up or down vote, it passes. I've been confident of that since day one, since last year. I just can't get it on the board because leadership just refuses to move it.
What do you make of this, though? You may not get a vote out of something, but in some cases, your colleagues don't even want to hear the argument.
Yeah, that's the power of being a chairman or also in leadership. If you don't like a bill for any reason, you don't have to hear it.
Meanwhile, there are people waiting and watching to see how this affects them and their pocketbooks.
That's right.
Okay, Senator Boyer, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for your time.
While Republicans control both the Senate and House, their majority over Democrats is the slimmest it has been in years, especially in the House, where Republicans outnumber Democrats 31-29. We sat down with Democratic Representative Kirsten Engel and asked whether Democrats have a seat at the table.
We are now almost 50-50 in this state. There are 31 Republicans and 29 Democrats in the Arizona House. 17-13 in the Senate. The numbers are extremely close. So this, of all times, is a time when the parties really need to sit down together. And that is what, frankly, we just haven't seen. As a Democrat, we feel like we have been frozen out of the negotiations, where what we're now facing is a Republican budget that the Republicans don't have the votes to pass. They need the Democrats. So rather than going through, frankly, what I see as a charade right now of passing a budget that they don't have the votes to pass through the Senate, why don't we sit down, be in the cage together and figure out a compromise, bipartisan budget that we can all get on board with.
When you say the cage, you talk about the Joint Legislative Budget Committee. How closely would you say the Democrats and the Republicans are each working with that body to be sure that a budget that matters to average Arizonans is actually being reviewed?
Well, I think there's been a lot of discussions. Each group has been working out their own proposed budget. They've been working with those budget analysts. I think what you see is the budgets that you get, they're accurate budgets, but they reflect the priorities of the different parties. And they're not super far off from each other. That's why there really is an opportunity to come up with one bipartisan budget.
The budget that has been proposed, what do you like about it? What don't you like?
Well, there's some good things in the current budget, the Republican budget that we've looked at. The governor is going forward with the 20 by 20 plan. There's a little bit of extra money for textbooks and computers in the schools. There's a lifting of the freeze on kids care, the low-income health care program. But we are at such a critical time in the state. We have some real additional revenues. And what I don't like about the budget, frankly, is how it's being proposed to use those additional revenues. Rather than fully funding education, which we could do right now, that money is really being handed out in tax cuts. And that just doesn't make any sense. This is the time to make up for years of neglect in funding our schools, our social programs, infrastructure, our roads, homelessness. This is the time that we can make that up. And it seems that we have enough money to do that and put some more money into the rainy day fund, like what the governor wants. And I think that's prudent.
One of the advocacy groups who's here today at the legislature says, how can we keep cutting taxes when we don't know what future revenues are really going to actually, what will their fruition be? How will they look in the coming years?
Well, that's a great point. There is an awful lot of, fuzzy predictions going on in the size of this tax cut that's being given. It is based upon projections of future revenues. And we've seen in the past that those predictions are just not accurate always. So that's very risky for us to be putting into place a permanent tax cut. And I think this is a very important point. We're putting in place really a permanent tax cut. You need a supermajority in the Arizona legislature in order to increase taxes. So once we cut taxes, it's going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to change that. And that is based on returning taxes that folks are saying, well, we've got that because of the Trump tax cut, so we're just passing that on to our people. Well, that tax cut runs out in 2025. The Prop 123 money for our schools, it runs out in 2025. So we're putting in place tax cuts that are going to affect our ability to fund our schools, and we're going to lose money that in 2025 we're going to really wish that we had.
Okay, Kirsten, thank you. One of Engel's colleagues in the House includes Republican T.J. Shope. We also spoke to him about the budget and the dynamic between the two parties. What do you like about this budget?
I think there's a lot to like personally. As many of your viewers know, at a local level, I'm also a school board member. The idea that we're following through on the 20 by 2020 plan, putting additional money into district assistance is something that the superintendent at Coolidge Unified, where I'm on the board at, was ecstatic about when I let her know. I think away from education, there's a lot to be happy about. I, like many of the folks that reside in Casa Grande and Coolidge, drive I-10 every day to work in the Phoenix area. And to have $10 million in the budget to begin a study that the Gila River Indian community has allowed us to do is significant, because if we can go ahead and finish that up, and the federal government actually does an infrastructure bill that has been talked about over the next year or two, we may be able to see that project completed, just like the Casa Grande to Tucson leg of I-10 was.
Given that you are a school board member, would you like to see a little bit more money headed toward education just to hold some of the teachers and the administrators over till the next year?
I think that what we are doing, so we did the first phase, we funded that. The second phase is funded in this. There'll be another phase next year. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we have to always prepare. That's part of the rainy day proposal, obviously, is we have to go ahead and commit what we are comfortable committing to in any given year. So would I have liked to have gotten the 20 by 2020 plan done earlier? Sure, I'm sure all of us would have. But we're sticking to the plan and in many respects going above and beyond what the original plan even laid out with the additional resources we have.
One advocacy group I spoke with said we're cutting back on taxes way too much, making them permanent when we don't know what the future holds when it comes to revenues. Do you see it? Do you see that argument?
You know, one of the things, and I know that that's been brought up to me as well, and I think that it may be a bit of a common misconception of what we're doing on tax reform this year. When the President and Congress got the federal tax cuts through a year ago, 2 years ago, Arizona was, if not one of the last, but the last state to conform its tax code to that tax cut reform bill. So what we're doing here essentially is making sure that Arizonans don't experience a tax increase. Doing nothing at the state level and not conforming Arizona's tax code to the federal tax code would mean automatic tax increases for folks. So by doing this this thing that we're doing with conformity, it allows us to keep those issues the same. You know, essentially making sure that Arizonans don't experience that, and we get to go forward.
You've been here for a few years now. Let's talk climate, because we do hear in the legislature the Republicans don't want to work with the Democrats don't want to work with the Republicans. What's really happening behind closed doors?
What I always try to tell folks, and I know that this is easily glossed over because most of the issues that we do take on down here are truly not partisan. Upwards of 90% of the bills that we pass, if not unanimously, but with only maybe 1 or 2 dissenting votes on either side. So in many respects, there are a lot of things that we agree on a nonpartisan basis that are just simply the ideas of moving government along, keeping things functioning for our citizens. As far as other issues, look, we are a microcosm of the rest of the country in many respects, and it's always been that way. I do believe that maybe the fact that Arizona has moved into a type of swing state status, if you will, a purple-ish hue coming about, has maybe caused both sides to dig in their heels a little bit, thinking about the next election perhaps, instead of thinking about the here and now and what we can be doing for Arizona's residents right now. So I think all of us would do well to be a little bit introspective and think how that affects the way that we legislate and how, probably even more important, the way we interact with each other, which is always probably one of the more important things for me.
TJ, thank you.
You bet.
Before leaving the Capitol, we got insight into how this session stands out from reporter Howard Fischer. He's covered the legislature for the last 30 years.
It is particularly unusual this year because you have a situation which is somehow the worst for lawmakers. They have too much money. Now, I know that they would never say that, but we have a record surplus. We have money coming in due to changes in federal tax law. They're going to change the law to allow the state to start taxing internet purchases. And so now the question is, how do you spend it? Now, that has brought everyone out of the woodwork. All the things that we cut for the last decade and a half, the schools, the hospitals, developmentally disabled, highway funding, and now everyone wants their piece. Meanwhile, you have folks saying, well, we need to put more money into the rainy day fund, because so we're preventing a future downturn. We should pay off some of our debt. And that's the problem, is we try to divide up all this money.
$11 billion budget, quite a piggy bank.
Yes.
How significant is it when you are able to save $1 billion in 1 year?
Right now, the rainy day fund is about $470 million. The plan is to put in another $570 over the next 2 years to get us up to $1 billion. Now, billion sounds like a lot of money, but you have to remember that's going to be only about 8 to 9% of the budget. That's not an unreasonable goal to have as a savings account, given that in the last recession, when we were hit particularly hard because of the real estate bubble, we drained that rainy day fund in practically no time at all. But the question becomes for folks, is this the top priority? We have schools that still haven't been paid back the money that was taken from them during the recession. We have child care subsidies that are below what they were before the recession. We have developmentally disabled providers who haven't gotten a raise even though the minimum wage has gone up and what they have to pay their providers. So the question becomes, what should be the top priority?
There may be some political theater playing into this. This is your 8th governor, nearly 30 years covering the Arizona legislature. What is so different this time around with the climate here at the Capitol?
A lot of it is new leadership. You have people like Karen Fann, who's been in the legislature for 9 years, Rusty Bowers, who's been in and out of the legislature over a course of a couple of decades. But they're still trying to get a feel for what it takes to line people up. I also truthfully think that the leadership didn't do enough early on to line people up, to find out what their priorities were. I think they asked, but in some ways, the budget that was released last Friday was a surprise to many of the lawmakers, many of the Republican lawmakers. And they started looking through and say, well, what about this? What about that? Now, they tried to sprinkle enough, I won't necessarily call them little gifts in there, to help people. There's $20 million for Pinal farmers to drill those wells. There's something like $10 million for studying widening Interstate 10 between Phoenix and Casa Grande. There's money for road widening in Yuma, things like that. But at this point, there's a lot of folks saying, well, what about my priorities?
For the average Arizonan who's sitting at home on the couch watching this, what do they need to know about what is taking place at the Arizona Capitol?
Well, what you need to know depends on what your issues are. For example, is if you're concerned about that new $32 a vehicle registration fee that was going to be in perpetuity, and then the governor said 5-year phase out, now it's a 2-year phase out. If you have children in child care and you're getting a subsidy, that becomes an issue to you. For a lot of people, the issues are sort of esoteric. You don't see it. As long as as long as the DPS is on the road, as long as the potholes for the most part are fixed, as long as somehow state government runs and the sun rises in the east in the morning, I think state government is pretty much invisible to people, much in the same way that what happens in Washington is invisible.
Okay, all right. Howard Fischer, thank you.
You're very welcome.
A new bill signed into law this session changes how the state regulates a natural substance called kratom. First, what is kratom? Kratom comes from the leaves of a tree by the same name that grows in Southeast Asia. It's often marketed as an herbal supplement in the United States where it's legal. Last month, Governor Ducey signed the Kratom Consumer Protection Act, which makes it illegal to sell to minors, creates labeling requirements, and prevents it from being sold if it contains certain ingredients. Proponents of kratom say it can relieve pain and treat opioid withdrawals. On the other hand, the Food and Drug Administration and the Drug Enforcement Administration have raised concerns, mainly whether kratom is addictive and potentially deadly in high doses. While it's not a controlled substance, the DEA classifies it as, quote, a drug of concern. With the DEA in Tucson, Steve McWiggin joins us in studio to explain the agency's stance.
The FDA has restricted the marketing of kratom in the United States. They've seized a number of shipments, and as of right now, there is no company or marketing company that has gone to the FDA to develop kratom as a drug.
It's on the DEA radar. Has DEA taken a position on kratom?
Right now, the DEA has taken a position that is a drug of concern and something that we're looking at. What the DEA does is they look at what the FDA research has brought forward, and they also have a public comment period where people that are proponents of kratom can come forward and give their side of the story to DEA, and DEA will gather all that information, and then they will make a decision.
There's a community of people that think that kratom is harmless because it is maybe an herbal supplement. Is that an accurate statement on your side?
From the research that's been gathered so far, there's 2 highly potent chemicals inside that leaf that have the possible dependence upon that, abuse, and addiction, and in the same way that opioids do.
Is it possible to use Kratom to actually get off opioids?
The FDA has stated that there is no therapeutic use for Kratom, and they believe that the use for opioid use disorder, that people think that they're getting off opioid use disorder by using Kratom, is a fallacy.
There are other leaves that you can buy by way of vitamins at herbal supplement stores. What's the difference between something like this and milk thistle, when people wonder why doesn't the FDA or DEA look at these other vitamins?
Well, because there hasn't been possibly deaths or overdoses or addiction attributed to milk thistle, but there have been some attributed to Kratom.
In April, the Centers for Disease Control released a report linking Kratom to accidental overdose deaths. It looked at data on more than 27,000 overdose deaths. In 91 cases, or less than 1%, medical examiners or coroners determined Kratom was involved. Although, in all but 7 of these cases, individuals had other drugs in their system, like fentanyl and cocaine. The American Kratom Association disputed the findings, arguing in part that the CDC report did not say whether the Kratom found in overdose victims was spiked with other substances. Poison Control here in Pima County has told me that they have received some phone calls, so they believe there's some sort of presence in the state for people who are wondering about its use. If somebody is considering, because they're watching this or they're trying to get off opioids, what do you think they ought to know before making that decision?
Well, they should know that Kratom is an unregulated drug, that the FDA has stated that it's not a drug that they've approved of. So as a parent, as a citizen, as a DEA agent, we want to protect the public at all costs. We would tell people not to use something that hasn't been properly scientifically looked at and approved by the U.S. government.
What's the average time frame when DEA is looking at something or accepting a public comment on these types of things?
I think it's different depending on the drug. Some things, like a heroin where it has no benefit, we know you can kill from one dose of it. I think that was probably something that was immediately scheduled and looked at by FDA, DEA. Something like Kratom, where we don't have all the data yet, and it's kind of a newer drug. People have known about it for many, many years, but it's coming into the United States and being used as a pain reliever type. Those types of things, it takes probably a little bit longer.
Why is Kratom legal in Arizona but not in other states?
Some states have taken action against Kratom before the federal government has taken any action because they feel that it's a threat to their community. So some states have passed laws that have restricted the use or sale of Kratom in their communities. The state of Arizona recently just passed a law that no one under 18 can purchase Kratom.
All right. Steve.
So I think we're moving toward that direction of restricting the use or regulating Kratom federally and possibly in the state of Arizona. I think we're moving toward that, but we're not there yet.
In Tucson, several smoke shops and specialty stores sell Kratom, as well as some specialized vending machines. We visited one business and spoke to owner and Kratom advocate Jill Fickett-Sugarman to learn more about the customers who come through her door. What does Kratom do to a person's body? It affects their mental and their health. Is that correct?
It's a great antidepressant, and I'm not a doctor by any means, but I know from experience and from what I've seen. I have 26 different strains, but these are the most popular ones. So there's the white mangda, the green mangda, and the red mangda. These are, when people say to me, they say, I want something for energy. I always go to the white mangda because that's gonna give them a lot of energy. It takes care of pain, it keeps people motivated, focused. I always tell people, I'm like, take as needed. So, I'm not a doctor, like I said before, but it's like, you become your own doctor. So you kind of figure out in a natural way, do I need Kratom now or can I take it later? Or, you don't have to rely on a doctor to tell you what to do. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. Can I get 50 grams of Red Bull?
You're seeing a different clientele of customer, right?
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about some of the things they come to you for that, Kratom will help them with.
They will come in just telling me that they are tired of taking, their Advil or ibuprofen. They're taking like 800 or 1,600 milligrams every 4 to 8 hours. I mean, like, not a good amount for the body or the liver. That, and also just in terms of people coming in and saying that my doctor's reducing my, my opioids, and I need something to help me with the withdrawal symptoms, and this does the trick.
I think it's still probably out in the public opinion just whether or not it's a safe product. Though it's not illegal, many people are skeptical about it.
Well, natural medicine, it's taken a while to get into the United States. So that's one thing. I'll tell you what's interesting is back in 2016, the government wanted to put a 30-day ban on Kratom. I've never seen or heard anything like it. They had a 30-day ban on Kratom. They were giving people 30 days to get rid of all their Kratom, whether they were vendors, people that took Kratom. That was how my business got big, was the government was trying to put a ban on it. They never ended up doing it because there were so many people that protested. And finally, on the 30th day, like the 11th hour, they said, okay, we're gonna do more research. Because there were so many people that were like, we need this. You can't take this away from us too.
Do you think that when your customers come in, this is like their last-ditch effort because
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, for a veteran that actually was at the VA and he had been prescribed so much for so long, and they were reducing his dosage and his prescription, and he was literally on the floor going through withdrawals. I mean, just ready to like kill himself. This was his last resort. He was literally gonna take his life if this wasn't gonna work. And he's still taking it to this day.
You're kind of in a gray area given that DEA, even at the local level, our governor is, okay, it's on my radar now. What does that mean for you moving forward? How do you proceed with kind of so many unknowns?
Well, I do these kind of things, interviews, and I've become an advocate for Kratom and for the people that buy it. I would just continue to fight the fight, and like I said, I put a sign out saying, hey, this is where we sell it. I know people get confiscated. I know things happen, but I'm willing to take the risk because what else is there, Someone's got to do it.
And that's all for now. Thanks for joining us. Be sure you visit us on social media and let us know what you think. We'll see you next week.